So we are in Chapter 1 test, taking questions. Where should we start? Are there any questions on 1 through 6? Yeah, I know this is weird. Like, we're going to take questions on the test. Future tests after Chapter 4 are like, yeah, you come and you take the test on your own, you get a grade, you can revise it, whatever. But with 1 through 4, because this stuff is somewhat overlap content, I just want to help you if needed. So, cross-multiplying, all that stuff. Yeah, Ava?
Where should we, like, do our revisions? Take a
Separate sheet of paper. Yeah, revisions need to be on a separate sheet of paper. I'm not in the business of trying to figure out what was first time, what was second time. Separate sheet of paper. And I would love if it has a label for revisions. By the way, I have a couple things that have no name right there on the chalkboard. If you turned in Chapter 2 printed, like double, like left, right. This was somebody that was here working with me the other day. And somebody turned in a Chapter 4 test with no name also. So if you turned in stuff, does this have, this does have a name. So check those, please, if you, especially if you turned in Chapter 2 and didn't get it back. And yeah, Morgan, I think that might be yours. I knew it was somebody that had come in to work with me, but I couldn't remember who. So throw your name on that, and then I'll get hydrated. No questions 1 through 6. 7 through 13. Oh, there's no questions on 7 through 13? Yeah.
13.
So this is one of those questions where it's really important to know how to isolate. So mathematics, and I want to create a poster that kind of gets to this. Mathematics is all about manipulation. It's manipulation of the world around us, all kinds of different manipulations. Really, actually, I'm going to do this. See, that's what happens if you don't hit Alt. So, Alt print screen only prints the window you're currently looking at. Alright, so this says solve for x. Now, when we say solve, we're not always meaning get a number, get an integer, find an answer. We're meaning isolate. So, we need to isolate our value of x when it's currently attached to a y through division and a 4 through addition. And we've got a z that's divided by 5 as well. The biggest thing this is trying to remind you of is when we're working, what do we call this whole Pemdas thing? The technical name is our order of operations, right? Our order is reversed when we're solving equations or working to isolate. So the first thing we take care of is undoing any addition or subtraction. Then we undo any multiplication division, and we work our way up. So the first thing I undo is that addition of 4 by subtracting 4 on both sides. Rewrite everything as you go. So now I have z divided by 5 minus 4. And then I undo the fact that this is divided, and this is where people struggle, though. When I go to multiply on these both sides, how is that y going to multiply on the right? Yep.
You have to use the distributive function.
We have to distribute because it has to multiply to every piece of the right-hand side. So now x becomes yz over 5 minus 4y. So those are good things to remember as we're working to isolate in equations or inequalities, is we got to work Pemdas backwards. Wait, don't tell me that you actually fixed yourself somehow over the couple weeks that we've been gone. Nope. Yeah, now it gets all glitchy. Give me a second to clear this out. Other questions, 7 through 13, because I'd be surprised if there's... Yeah, Jenny?
10.
Oh, 10. Jenny, you're going to hate yourself. Not like, and I don't mean that, like, feel bad. I just mean, I know you. You're going to have a really big facepalm moment. So, when we start working with absolute values, we need to remember what absolute value does. And I like to call the absolute value the attitude adjuster. Apparently my hard drive is almost full. I guess I only have a half-hour video left. I'll have to fix that. So what does absolute value do? Why would I call it the attitude adjuster?
What makes things positive?
Makes things positive. Get it, Ava? So sometimes when people walk in, especially 7th grade pouty, and they're all like mopey and whatever, I just say absolute value to them. And at least because it's nerdy, they often smile because I'm a giant geek. Absolute value makes things positive. So when I look at number 10, the absolute value of 5x plus 13 equals negative 7. So the absolute value of blah equals negative 7. Does that make sense? So, no solution. It's empty set. There's no solution to it. So remember, no solution, the empty set symbol, 0 the slash through it. Not this, which is actually theta, which is also used in math. I had a student confuse those, and I realized, yeah, they are kind of close to each other. Theta is an O with like, kind of like the top of pi in the middle of it, a little squiggly. Empty set is really like a circle with a slash through it. Not an O, but like a circle. Because it's saying this does not exist. This cannot happen. So that's one of those things. I subscribe to this guy who has an amazing website. His name's Robert Kaplinski. But he posed a question to some 5th grade math students. Said, like, if there are 38 sheep and 3 shepherds, how old is the shepherd's daughter? Something like that. And by 7th or 8th grade, you can only figure out, like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I can't figure out the shepherd's daughter's age based off what's given to me. Before you dive into a problem, a lot of us, especially for those bright kids that like think, oh, I should know how to solve this. Take a moment to analyze what it's asking you to do. If you dive right into 10 and start trying to solve it, you can start trying to solve it and like take a bunch of steps. But if you pause yourself and realize absolute value equals a negative can't happen, then you're done. Don't waste your time trying to do things that can't be done. Analyze the problem before you start. What else? 7 through 13 section. Anyone want to see either of these absolute value situations solved out? Anyone struggle on like 11 or 12? Want to see those? Remember that with absolute value? Yeah, Crystal? 11? Yeah, I would love to. So remember that with absolute value, my input could be positive or negative, what I start with. So there's a couple different ways to do this. But because of how it's going to relate to inequalities, sorry, that's really going to frustrate me. So give me a second. All right, much better. So we have 5 times some quantity that has been made positive equals 30. So if I just told you, like let's think theoretically for a minute. If I just said 5 times some number equals 30, what would you tell me? That number's 6, right? Most of us know that. That's all I'm saying over there. Except that number is more complicated than that. This is my that number. So what I want to do first, and what you would have done first here, is divide by the 5 to analyze the situation. So when I divide by the 5 here, I get that the absolute value of 8 minus y equals 6. But the where people struggle is realizing that this actually has 2 different routes to get here. This 8 minus y might have just been 8 minus y, and that equals the 6. Or the 8 minus y might have been the opposite of what I thought it was, and that equals 6. Absolute value equations, or inequalities, are oftentimes going to have 2 solutions. And I know who that is. I need to talk to them later. So then I evaluate like this. And you can play with things differently. We have a negative variable here, so we kind of don't like that. You can either bring the variable over and bring the number back, or just get rid of the positive 8 by subtracting 8 from both sides, and you'll get negative y equals negative 2. And then y equals 2. Or, not and, it's an or situation, because it's not going to be both at the same time. Negative 8, positive y. Y could also be 14. So always look at the root, the beginning, where we see we take what's in the inside of the absolute value, evaluate it just how it is, and then evaluate it the opposite of what it is. Questions on that? Because the input might have been, could have been, positive or negative. And some people like to write this one where we look at the second option. Some people like to write this as 8 minus y equals negative 6. What if that quantity had been negative? That won't change your answer. You'll end up with the same thing. So whether you invert or like make negative, make opposite the original, the absolute value quantity, or the what it's equal to quantity, you just have to isolate the absolute value first. So you can't, I've only seen this mistake like 1 or 2 times, you can't do anything with the positive negative options till you get rid of values outside the absolute value. So if there's addition or subtraction, you got to get rid of that before you evaluate the 2 options. If there's multiplication, you got to get rid of that before you evaluate the 2 options. Good on 11? Any other questions? All right. Anything else up through 13? Oh, I still have a pen. Being a smart board, sometimes it doesn't really help things. Uh, 14 through 17, graphing. Ava.
Wait a minute.
I want to point out one big thing worth talking about. The difference, I'm not going to write on this, the difference between these graphs, this graph, and that graph. Can anyone summarize, like, when I go to write the inequality, how they're going to be different from each other? So, like, graph 14 and 15, how's that inequality going to look? Ava?
That's going to have one of the, like, the inequality symbols, but those I think are going to have multiple x's in between 2.
So, when I either have a confined range or 2 separate ranges, I'm going to use multiple inequality symbols. When I only have one range and it continues out forever, I only need to use 1. And the big difference between 16 and 17, this is and, so we write it together. This is or, so we write it separately. So if I were to say, actually I am going to capture this. By the way, guys, I want you to get the best score possible in this class. I would like everybody to get an A. So when it seems like, why is he helping us so much? want to help you guys and help your understanding.
I had actually a question on 17. You're like.
I think I'm going to cover your
Didn't
question.
really make sense.
Yeah, so give me a second. I think I'll cover what I wrote on your paper. So, 14 should be pretty easy. And if you haven't done chapter 1, go ahead and look at it. Might as well be on it together with us. I know that I have some range, x, z, whatever you want to say. I like z. Don't know why. When my circle's empty, is that included? When my circle's empty, this point. Not included, so there's no or equal, so it's just less than. Figure out where that point is. Be careful. That is a negative 1. When it's included, now be careful, even though this is to the right of the 5, it's not bigger than, it's closer to 0. So that's going to be different. But here in 16, I could write this as, sorry, get my cables out of the way. I can write this as x is greater than or equal to negative 1. And at the same time, x is less than 3. That's not technically correct. What I've written there is factual. It is true. But that is not the correct way to leave that. You do know what I'm going to say?
Did you put them into one, please?
I can put them into one inequality, and it's actually called a double inequality. So be careful saying equation, and everyone makes this mistake, but equations versus inequalities, we're not relating things that are equal, we're relating ranges and things that are not equal. This is my range of x. I can state that together as x is, well, it's bigger or equal than the negative 1, and it is smaller and not equal to the 3. Don't leave them written separately when the range is together. But when the range is separate, that I would say x is less than 0 or x is greater than 2. Do not try to write this together, because if I do, it doesn't make any sense. I can't, like, when I write a double inequality, my inequality symbols have to be pointing the same direction. Because I have to be going from one direction to the other. So I'm either reading it left to right or reading it right to left. I can't put these together because I don't have a limiting factor to the left side and a limiting factor to the right side. My limiting factor is the gap that doesn't exist. So this is the only gap that x can't equal, actually. So it would almost be easier to say what x can't equal. But we don't do that. We have to say what x can be. X could be values less than 0, or x could be values greater than 2. But they're not together, so they have to be written separately using the or, cannot be in. Does that help you?
Yeah.
What's up, Mr. Sherg?
No.
Happy Tuesday.
Hey, how's it going? Everybody doing okay?
I do like that shirt.
Thanks.
No shorts today.
It's a little chill.
Well, you know, I had that debate this morning too. Hey, I put in my first logged ride of the year, because your wife rides, right? We've talked about this. 13.5 miles yesterday. Just meandering up through, went through the hills, out the hills, up through Powell.
There you go. Alright, I'll come find you later when you're not.
Oh, you need to talk to me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll come find you when
Okay.
these guys are out of here.
Yeah.
How long are you here?
All day?
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
On the back. So remember, even in these situations, we're evaluating both the positive option and the negative option. So there will be two, and on a few of your guys' papers, I wrote an absolute value opportunities have multiple solutions or things like that. So that's where if you only give me one of the solutions, you need to go back and evaluate the other situation. I don't need to see any of these 18 through 25. Yeah, Ava?
I have a question about one side of the equation
For
for 19.
19?
Yeah. Because I think I got, like the for one side, and then I got 3 for the other.
So I'm guessing you probably did your positive side already. Yes, maybe? So our positive side here, which is good, especially for those of you who maybe haven't done this yet and need a little bit of a reminder, my positive option is just how it is. And this throws some people off sometimes. When I subtract that 9 from both sides, this does not mean that this is like done with. It just means that it's relating to 0 now. And I can still divide by 6, and we will get that q less than or equal to 0. But my alternative option is if the input was actually a negative quantity. So that would be negative 6q minus 9 less than or equal to 9. What do I do first here? Might as well get some engagement from you guys. Add the 9, then what will I do? Divide by negative 6. Now, what's the danger there? So when we divide by the negative, and this is the biggest mistake that 7th and or 8th graders tend to make, this inequality symbol gets reversed. And if no one's ever showed you how or why that happens, I can do that sometime when we're not full group. But it's because what I'm doing involves the opposite. So this now says that q, sorry, that kind of looks like a 6. Q is less than or equal to 0. And q is greater than or equal to negative 3. So when I'm looking less than 0, greater than negative 3, is that going to be one range or 2 separate ranges? Less than 0, greater than negative 3. 1, actually.
Okay.
Think about being less than 0, greater than negative 3. So this is actually an AND situation. So it can be written together. We could say negative 3 is less than or equal to q is less than or equal to 0. Now, I would not take points off if you left the 2 separate answers here, because you don't have to get to that point of realizing that it's one range, but it is one together contained. Yeah.
And then for 22, I got the correct answer, but I don't know how I got it. And you have to know it. I don't know how I did it.
I'm not certain that you got the correct answer, because if I put work there, I think, I'm trying to remember which paper was yours.
Well, then I really don't know how to do it.
So, I think this is one of those times where you're making it harder than it is. What would I want to do first in a situation like this? Any situation like this. Yeah, Ava, I'm going to pick on you since you combine like terms, right? I need to get my F's together. How would I do that?
You would divide both times by F.
If I divide by F, this gets divided by F, and then I would end up in a situation that is 1 is greater than or equal to negative 5 plus 36 divided by F. So we can do what you told me to do, but this is ugly.
Yeah.
Now, we wanted to combine like terms. You just tried to like destroy F's. I don't want to get rid of them. I want to put them together to begin with. And actually, I want to keep F because I'm trying to solve for F. So don't divide by F. That starts to destroy them. First, if we add 5F, dyslexic. You can be dyslexic and be good at math. It is definitely possible. Now we end up here, and that should be solvable, Eva.
Okay.
James, you probably want this back, don't you? Give me a second to put this into Schoology, because we've been going over chapter 1 stuff, and